Hello everyone, my name is Nate Tinbite, and this year I'm your student member of the Montgomery County Board of Education. Would you like to introduce?
Sure. Hi, I am McKnight, Deputy Superintendent here at Montgomery County Public Schools.
So today we wanted to take the opportunity to host a live Q&A with McKnight, our Deputy Superintendent of Schools, to discuss the county's progress right now on COVID-19 and discuss all updates, and also to simply bring up student concerns and get those questions answered as well. Do you have any opening?
I just want to say to our students, thank you so much for making your voices heard in this process. Some of you have reached out and sent emails to Dr. Smith or myself, and as a former teacher, principal, leader in the district, it's always good for us to make sure we hear from our students, because our goal at the end of every day is to make sure we're serving you well. So I am so glad if you're participating in this live stream that you're here, and any questions that you have, we want to make sure we try to address them to the best of our ability. So thank you for participating.
Thank you. And to start getting right into it, a lot of students have had questions on instruction. What is MCPS doing over the next 2 weeks on instruction and especially technology access? Because I know a lot of students in Montgomery County don't have access to technology.
Great question. So first of all, let me say that I'm impressed that our students are thinking about the instructional piece continuum, because that is a priority to us as well. So today, Friday, before students left building, we made a very, very big effort, I would say in the last not even 24 hours, maybe the last 15 hours or so, to make sure we were making paper copies of the educational resources that we were making available to our students in schools. And so we made sure those paper instructional resources were sent to you through your schools, and so they should have been distributed today before students left. In addition to that, our high school students, we also know that many of you already do much of your work online. And so we want everybody to be able to go to the web page and be able to access resources if something happened. If you did get a paper copy today and it got messed up or flew away or whatever it may be, go to the website, and you also have a copy of the instructional materials that were given out today. They're there on the website. And actually, all of our students, which I'm very proud to say, from kindergarten up to 12th grade, actually have a great opportunity every day to participate in engaging in your learning experience online. Everyone really has the My MCPS portal, and most students utilize that in all of our classrooms, and so we have uploaded information there as well. And as we talk about the digital access piece, I think it's a conversation that we always have to have around equity. And so we know that some of our students have access to technology and have access to hotspots, but we also have to think about the fact that some of our students don't. And so for our students who do have access to those items, we want to utilize them, and that's why we've posted things online so that you can utilize your own resources appropriately if you have them. For our students who do not, we actually also reached out to our schools and have been working with them to identify students who would be in need of a hotspot or a device if we ended up being out for an extended amount of time, so that we can make sure they get into the hands of the students who need them. So that is definitely a piece we have already started to coordinate with our schools, and are getting things together at the central office, and so that we can make sure that's prepared if needed for an extended amount of time.
Thank you. And actually a big question that I am seeing, and we're getting questions live as they come, and so the next question is on meal plan. A lot of students in Montgomery County are on farms, free and reduced meals, and they depend on school system meals for breakfast and lunch as well. And so during these 2 weeks, as students are not in schools, what's the process on Montgomery County providing that?
Yes, so students, we want to make sure that you are taken care of as we embrace our interactions with you every day, that being the core of our responsibility. And so knowing that for 2 weeks we won't have the nature or the routine of you coming through and receiving those meals, we still want to be able to provide that. So beginning on Monday, we will have 20 sites available throughout the county to be able to have grab and go meal options for our students, and that will be offered from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. And so please visit our website. We have information there listing what the locations are. We'll make sure we include it out on social media and in other places that we know we'll be able to advertise, so that that message gets out. And so we want our students to take advantage of that. And if you, you need those things, know that we are providing those services so that you don't have to worry about that.
Great. athletics and extracurricular activities. Big thing that a lot of students really engage in.
Yes.
Every day after school, the weather's getting good. But what are we doing right now in terms of athletics and extracurriculars? That's a big part of student life.
Absolutely. So our extracurricular after-school activities have also been canceled and closed due to the closing of schools, and so I want to make sure everyone is clear on that. I'm right there with you. March Madness is an exciting time for me, and while I have not had the opportunity to actually sit in a game, I do watch it on TV, and so I'll be watching it on TV, if everything moves forward. But for our students, know that we want to reiterate the message that we heard from our governor and from our county executive. And we really do have to, as hard as it is socially, really follow the directions of making sure we do not do mass congregation. And I know this is a different time for us to think about how we can be creative in how we socialize and do things like that, but we want to be cognizant of that and know that that's why we have canceled our activities due to honoring the request of the governor and county executive. So with that, I said, this is a time for us to be creative. I'm right there with you. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do at home with my, 8-year-old son over the next couple of weeks when, when we have more time and he's not in school. And so, this is a time for us to really be creative about that. And our internet options and our social media options give us many opportunities to socialize without actually having to be there in person. So I'm sure many of us will be busy in that venue.
Yep. And one thing that students have brought up, especially today, is quarter three. Our grades, term that people have been hearing all throughout today is grades are frozen. And so what is happening in the background with that? What does that mean? And what are the plans right now in terms of quarter three, or is it just a work in progress?
So great question. And we are, again, a few hours, maybe 24 hours out now of the news coming out that we're closing on Monday.
Just around then.
Yep, just around then. So we have been meeting after the press conference last night, first thing this morning and throughout the day, really planning for, one, making sure our students' grade process to reflect their learning is not disrupted in any way, particularly unfair way, as we have had to address this closing that we could not have anticipated, months ago or a year ago. And so that's first and foremost our priority. And even when you think about the instructional materials that we've made available, we've made sure that we have not provided an opportunity where students are expected to learn new content. We know there is much value in students being able to interact with their peers in the classroom, interact with the teacher to build on the knowledge base when you are learning new experiences that you're trying to apply to whatever the concept is that you're learning. And so, even in our planning for the instructional activities, we've taken that into consideration. So I just want to say, make use of the educational resources that we've provided. In terms of grades, we are being thoughtful about our process to make sure grades aren't negatively impacted because of this circumstance. And we will work and figure that out so that our students, again, aren't impacted in any negative way. So of all the things to worry about, that is not something I want our students to worry about right now. We're going to take care of that because our interest is your interest.
Great. And to those that are just tuning in, I quickly wanted to say that this is a live Q&A between our Deputy Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Monifa McKnight, and myself, your student board member, just on student concerns and questions that are coming up. And so this next question is fairly brought up by both teachers and parents and also older siblings. What's going on with elementary schoolers, daycare programs? How are we actually providing shelter or housing for a lot of those students who are not going to be in school throughout the 2 weeks?
So first of all, can I say I love these questions?
Yeah. These are all student questions.
And I love the questions because what it says to me about our community is that we care about everybody within our community. And so that question just kind of brings up the fact that not every student has a younger sibling that needs daycare, and not every student has a family who may have to worry about daycare, but it does become everybody's worry or concern, as it should, because that's a very big part of our community. So I just had to say that because again, one of the many reasons I'm proud to be a part of our Montgomery County Public Schools family. So we have been having conversations with our county government partners in making sure we are working together to figure out ways that we can provide daycare. As of right now, we are designating our Monday and Tuesday as the cleaning days heavily in our schools, and so we've concentrated on that on next week, Monday and Tuesday. We are in conversation right now with our county partners to discuss what places we can open up for daycare for our families throughout the rest of the duration once we've done that significant cleaning, and what places will be appropriate, as we do have many schools and facilities, over 208 schools and facilities to clean over 2 weeks. We're also figuring out what are the best sites to be able to do that, to not interrupt with the cleaning plan. So I'm saying that to say we are having conversations about it. There will be daycare services provided. We're working with the county on that, and that's information that we will also be putting out, because we know that is a big piece of what has to be tended to in our community during this 2-week closure.
Great. And this next question, which I don't think I asked, but what's happening with spring break? Any thoughts? Any conversations up in central office?
Yes, spring break is on everybody's mind, as it should be. And so, again, this morning we have really been having lots of conversation with our associations that represent all of our employees in the system and district leaders about how do we actually address make-up days. So we are balancing two things here. We know that there are planned schedules that people had, and then we also know that we have a responsibility to be able to make up some of these days. And so right now we're just in conversation about how can we balance the days that we have, that we actually can use as make-up days, so that they are days that includes the interests of everyone and not are as disruptive, but also allowing us to be diligent to knowing that we're going to have to figure out a way to be collaborative and have some make-up days. So to be announced soon. And yesterday at the county executive press conference, I believe I said that we would be able to announce our make-up plan by Tuesday of next week. So please make sure you are watching and tuned into the website and everywhere to really get a sense of what that make-up plan is going to be, because that will communicate to everyone exactly what we're doing in regards to spring break.
Great. So this question has also been brought up by students, which in particular seniors. Basically, we want to know, including myself, what's going to happen with prom, graduation? Is that up to central office members or school principals? What's the work on that as well?
So I will begin by doing this. It is March, early March, and a lot has happened over the last 24 hours. A lot has happened in the last 10 days. A lot has happened over the last couple of months that we could not have anticipated about, having the exact conversation we're having right now at this moment. Mm-hmm. So I say that to say we do have some indication that's saying we should plan for right now. We should plan for an extended amount of time. Right now, and for the past few weeks, we have really been extensively planning for a 2-week period, which is where we're in right now, and beyond that, a longer term plan. We will begin to have conversations about what prom, graduation, all that will look like in May. We're not there yet, but we will have conversation about that. And again, I continue to say to our students, it's so critical and important for us to hear from you. I mean, sometimes your ideas make our ideas better, and sometimes your ideas are better than our ideas. And so if we get to that point where we really have to say we need to think about what we will do in those spaces, we will really need to lean into your ideas and thoughts, because much of the things you mentioned are like traditions and celebrations about, a culmination of your life as a student. And so for you to be able to be involved in that conversation and to help, be a part of building what that looks like, we want to include you in that. So I have made a mental note of that and look forward to us figuring out ways to do that.
Great. So for those of you who are tuning in, basically, the Deputy Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Monifa McKnight, and I, student member of the board, are discussing student questions and concerns. We're bringing your questions to actual answers and are also taking notes. So on the next question, a lot of high school students take AP exams, are taking SAT exams. What's the conversation around that? And I know that's coming up soon, so
sure.
What can students expect in the future?
Right. So lots of conversations around what the requirements are for students to be prepared to participate in assessments and things that close out their IB experience and their AP experience. And so we took that into consideration as we were preparing resources, knowing that there are, lots of assessments and things associated with those courses, and how we wanted to make sure that was included in the bank of resources provided, or how students could access those things. Of course, we will, be in contact with our partners as we always are in the AP and IB world, and just talk about how we always have to consider circumstances to think about spaces in which we need there to be flexibility. And we, can put our message out, and we will, and share those things with them, and just hope that they are able to hear them and be flexible in some of the protocols and practices that they have set up.
Great. And how about for special ed students? What's the plans around that? Because I know a large portion of our student population are also special ed. So
Yes.
What's central office doing in terms of the plans for those students for over the next 2 weeks?
So students receiving special education services, again, when we talk about our students, we talk about all of our students, and then we talk about our students who may need us to think about how we differentiate for them. And our students receiving special education services have been involved in that conversation. And so we have just really been discussing, in terms of case management, what that looks like. Our students who are on the range of receiving special education services, our students who participate in community, like work sites and things like that. How are we communicating with those work sites to make sure that our students are safe while school is closed, and really working with them on saying, we want to protect the interests of our students, and again, thinking about what their experiences are over this 10-day period, that we know of now, that will continue to get them engaged and provide the services that they need. So I've been working very much in a collaboration with our Associate Superintendent of Special Education Services, Kevin Lowndes, and talking with him about working with the staff about how we differentiate for all of those needs. And I must say our parents and students, again, have been very upfront with us in terms of having us think about what the experiences are that they want to continue, and even sharing ideas about how we're able to do that in present and future circumstances if needed. So again, I invite for those conversations to continue, because the collective intellect will help all of us benefit.
Yeah, and a big question that I forgot to address as well, what are some simple health tips? How can students stay safe throughout this whole process? How can they not spread the virus if they are affected? And basically, what can they learn from this experience? How can they go through it with real health advice?
Right. So glad you brought that up, Nate. There has been a lot of advice shared over the past several months. I think that advice has given a different voice to everyone in the past week or so, because it's home for us right now. And so I would say tune in. There are practices that I'm sure many of us already practice, but can't emphasize it too much. Wash our hands with soap and water.
It's a big one, by the way.
It is a big one. It is a big one. I have a son who's 8 years old, and I still remind him every day to do that, and it's just like you put it in your memory, and then it's habit. And so washing our hands is going to be critically important, and just doing it more frequently always helps. And I want to turn back to this avoiding the mass gathering piece, because again, in our society, that may very well represent a challenge for us, because we are big on socialization, as we should be, and it's a part of our culture. That's a good thing, and that's why we thrive in the way that we do. However, I want to say Dr. Gales mentioned yesterday that many of the patients who've been impacted by COVID-19, have been of a certain age range, but for those who don't fit into that age range, and I'll say we probably haven't heard about many cases as it relates to younger kids or students, also know that it's important for us to be healthy and to avoid those mass crowds, because the symptoms could show up differently, and we're still learning a lot about this. And so we wouldn't want to not follow those practices, and in a sense, if we're younger, actually be around older people, our grandparents, our parents, and cause them to be in a compromising situation. So it's about thinking beyond just what it represents for us, and how we have to be very thoughtful about how our interactions may impact others around us who may be more vulnerable. So I just wanted to cue in on that point, because that's a big part of how we're going to have to think about this as we practice safe and healthy hygiene moving forward.
Yep, and another thing that I heard today, I had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Gales, our county health officer, and he was also sharing with me that when you cough or sneeze, use your elbow.
Yes.
And especially if you're in a situation where just as you mentioned, touching surfaces and such, just wash your hands.
Yes.
And it's the best way to really get rid of it. And on that note, students also want to know basically what's going on with, can you go a little bit more in depth with our school plans as to how fast we're disinfecting schools? Are we also working on buses, classrooms, tables? What's in the general scope, and will that hopefully be done by the 2 weeks that we hopefully get back?
Oh, absolutely. So the 2-week period does give us the time to actually do that deep cleaning and disinfecting that we are setting out to do and have planned to do if this occurred. So that does include surfaces in our schools, and we think about all the surfaces we don't realize that we touch throughout the day, whether it may be the top of a locker bank in a school, or doorknobs, or of course the handrails. All of those areas, counters and things in schools that we touch, those are the areas that we're going to be cleaning. And yes, that does include like buses. That's where students are, and so that does include buses and other spaces. That's why we kind of label it as facilities, not just schools, but facilities and school facilities, because primarily any area in which we have our students and our staff, those are the areas that we're going to focus on cleaning. And yes, the 2-week period does allow us to be able to do that. And again, I just have to give a shout out to our staff, because this is a part that people have been planning for, and so they are prepared. And we take pride in making sure our spaces are ready for our staff and students who come into those spaces every day, because you know the work that happens in a school and in our facilities, we want everybody to be healthy. And so whatever we can do to make that environment a healthy and safe one for everyone who has to interact in it, that's one, our responsibility, but two, is something that we care about. So
great. And in the event that we do return after 2 weeks of school, are there any discussions amongst our school system leaders as to students who might be affected or and are coming back to school or might not? I mean, is that a topic of discussion? Because I hope we do come back based off of no other cases coming up. But in that situation, are those discussions coming up in central office?
Sure. Those discussions are in central office, and it's what we've been saying all along. We're going to continue to connect with and collaborate and follow the direction of our Department of Health and Human Services. From the very beginning of this process, when it came down to a possible closure, to us even having a plan for reentry back into school, MCPS does all of that in connection with the Department of Health and Human Services. And so we will be working with them, following their direction on all of the protocols that we need to follow to make sure that we are coming back into a health and safety environment.
Great.
And health and safe environment.
Yeah, and not just for students, but parents and stakeholders as well. What's our communication plan? If it's not social media, if students or folks are not connected to devices, not connected to Alert Montgomery or our social medias, how are we reaching out to those who are just simply not connected in the 21st century way? How are we giving them updates on school system items and news?
So I first definitely want to ask if you have the capability, come up to 21st century, because I tell you, to depend on those Montgomery Alert and things like that, that's so valuable because it goes beyond the school system. I even think about if there is a severe weather situation that happens and it happens quickly, why it's so important for us to be connected. But yes, we also have to think about the spaces in which that does not exist. So one, we primarily try to make sure we communicate through social media to get that audience on our website. We also make calls out to connected calls, because you know, even if people aren't connected with social media or on the internet, everybody, you know, we definitely try to do the connected call so that people can get a phone call with that information. We also communicate in a number of different languages, you know, knowing that we don't want our message not to reach any audience. And so that's also been a big part of our communication effort. So we will utilize each of those forums. You know, if there are thoughts and ideas about other ways, we're always open to that, because we always want to focus on making sure our communication method reaches everybody with information that's timely and factual. So those are primarily the ways in which we communicate.
Great. And also on this topic, basically, we're actually, this next topic on going back to technology, and a question that I see that's reoccurring on our live stream is are we able to distribute Chromebooks to students who might need this source of technology at home? Do we have Chromebooks maybe with Wi-Fi on it, because a lot of students don't have Wi-Fi? So this is a reoccurring question. For those that didn't hear, what's the process on that?
So I'll definitely go back to that one. We have been working with our schools over the last few hours, day or so, to make sure we have information about all of our students, and working with staff to make sure we have information about students who may benefit from needing a device or a hotspot. And we were gathering that information really if we needed to utilize it in a phase 2 part of what we need to do. Over this 2-week period with the educational resources and things that we have also said if students feel like it's causing a hardship during this time to reach out to the school, they'll reach out to central office and we'll work with students to get what they need, whether it may be internet access or a device. But we are really we wanted to have the information and planning for a phase 2 if needed, so that we would already know who the students are and could just equip them with what they need. So that's been a part of our discussion and planning, and you know, hoping that we're not there, but if we're there, we definitely have started the plans to make sure we can provide students with what they need.
Great. And for those of you all who have tuned in recently, this is a live Q&A between Dr. Monifa McKnight, our Deputy Superintendent of Schools, and myself, Nate Tinbite, your student board member. And basically, going to the question of, as we mentioned, programs and extracurriculars, 6th graders have also been asking what's going on with outdoor ed, if they have that coming up as well. Are we discussing that?
Yes. So if students, up to this point, up until we closed, we continued outdoor education. And so we consider outdoor education a facility that we use as a part of MCPS. And so all the precautions that we'd been taking to keep students safe and healthy in our schools were applied to that space. Of course, now that schools are closed, there is no outdoor ed happening, because that falls into the realm of field trips and things like that. When school returns and is open, I would expect that along with other programs will presume appropriately as we have, unless we have circumstances to say otherwise.
Great. And so over this 2-week period, as basically we say grades are frozen, if teachers do give students a packet or assignment, is any of that graded? Are there any quizzes or tests going out? I mean, it's just a simple question that students want to know.
So the educational resources that we provided, those will not be considered as grades, but I do want to make a point out that we did not introduce new concepts in those resources that were available. So when you return, if there are to be some classroom assessments or things that are used to continue to measure learning, those are things that students that are components or concepts that students had already learned in school, and so it would not be considered new content. So I would say, you know, our teachers probably will continue to have checks for understanding in concepts that were already taught. So I say that to say students should complete those educational resources and use the time to practice to continue the learning.
Great. And this is one of the final questions, but in the event that we do extend our school year calendar this year, if it does get to the worst comes worst situation, will our calendar get extended? That's the first point. And will there be makeup days, or how will things go in the worst comes worst situation?
I like how you frame worst comes worst, Nate.
People have to think about it. I mean,
right. And so what we do well is when we initially plan our school calendar, we always include additional makeup days in case something happens at the end of our school calendar. And again, we go back to the process that we put in place in collaboration with our associations to really look at all of the options that are available to us through what the state would approve as a makeup day and what we have available in our calendar. And we look at all of that to try to come out with the best option. And so that is, you know, what we talked about earlier. Maybe looking at some days in spring break, maybe considering spring break, maybe considering whether those makeup days come at the end of the year, and that there are any days outside of those planned days that are other holidays or whatever it may be that we could consider as a makeup day that would be appropriate for our community. So
It's just,
we have many options. We will know on Tuesday.
Their full plan.
That's right.
Yeah, and this will be one of the last questions, but basically, students also want to know that in the event that school does not return back over the next 2 weeks, and basically on Monday and when the days go on, what should students do? Is there instructional program on TV? Are they able, it's a simple question, are they able to meet up with friends? I know these are more direct health practices, and we should refer them to DHS, but just simple things like that. What's the best scenario? Because I've heard a lot from our county health officer, but also students would like to understand that as well.
Right. So I won't put on my county health officer hat because I don't have one. Mine is limited to educator.
Right.
I will emphasize and say communication for everyone during this time will be critical.
Yeah.
Because if circumstances change in any way, that we will have to follow the direction of our county officials, Department of Health and Human Services, what their advice is in terms of what are we able to do and what the limitations are, and then what we can return to as normal. And so we will have to clearly follow their direction because they're following the science of this. They're collaborating with partners across the nation that will indicate to us what is safe. And so we will have to follow that. In terms of our role in the school system, we will continue to be very diligent in communicating with our stakeholders, sharing if we need to extend our resources, educational resources, what that will be, how they will be accessed, continuation of meals. We will be diligent in making sure we continue to communicate all of that so that everyone gets the information that they need. So that will be our part, and everybody's part will be to follow the advice of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Great. And so for our final question, will most teachers be available during break? Are we able to email them, reach out to them through digital communication? And in that scenario, will any of them be teleworking? Are they able to telework? What's basically the option of a student who's trying to catch up on work, and are they able to just simply reach out? Will teachers respond back? Is that the goal or the expectation?
Right. So I could not speak about every situation.
Yeah.
There will be, teachers who, we already have. I would say let's continue to follow processes that we followed before. If we have some of our students who were emailing our teachers before, and if you email them, I wouldn't say don't. But also, let's not expect that they would probably be following up within 10 minutes or 15 minutes because we don't know what everyone's doing. We have some teachers who are continuing to collaborate, with central office around plans that are being made if we, if we need more educational resources. And so some of them, may be busy with that work. But again, we all operate a lot through email. Yeah. And so if you send an email, I would say, you may get a response back. You probably will get a response back from your teacher. When, let's just be flexible in our expectations around that. Again, we're kind of all in this together. A couple days ago, we didn't know we would be doing this right now. So much of this will be figured out. And again, I just say our collaboration with our associations to pan out all of these details over the last 24, 36 hours are still very much in process. But
great. And
if you email me,
you'll respond back. I hope so. and so basically, on a final note, if you could, just as you mentioned earlier, just discuss our meal plan for students who are not able to receive meals on their own or relied on school system meals. What's going to go on throughout the 2 weeks that we foresee right now, and what can students expect?
Thank you for asking that question again. We wouldn't want anyone to miss that. So we are going to begin to make our meal services available, and it will be grab-and-go meals for our students. It will begin on Monday at 20 different locations throughout the county, and the time that those meals will be offered will be from 11 to 1. Great. And so any student that needs that, we want them to go and take advantage of those services. We don't want any student to not have the basic necessities that they need while schools are out. So it's there. We want you to take advantage of it, and that's who we are.
And I'm so
That's where
happy
it's
we're
going.
working proactively, right?
Absolutely.
And all of that information will be on the MCPS website.
Yes.
And same with this live stream. To end it off, I really wanted to thank you, Dr. McKnight, for answering students'
Thank you,
questions. A lot of these things have just been on their minds, and I'm happy you were able to clear that up. And this live stream will also be available on the MCPS YouTube channel and on my Instagram as well, so please feel free to replay and replay and replay as well. But basically, if you'd like to reach out to us, my contact information is Nathaniel_Tinbite@mcpsmd.org. You'd be able to email me at that. And your contact info?
Monifa _B_McKnight@mcpsmd.org.
Dr. McKnight and I are always here to answer all of your questions, all of your concerns. We will definitely be working digitally, hopefully,
Yes.
as at a minimum over the 2 weeks, so please feel free to reach out to us. Once
Absolutely.
again, thank you so much, and thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.